I'd like to welcome Crystal Boudreau and coming here and speaking to us about women and in women in executive hockey positions. So looking to explore that. She's had over 25 years with Minnesota Wild Foundation, as well as the family business that she helped kind of co-develop within Minnesota, as well as here in Hershey with USPHL teams, and exploring some of those other, kind of facets. And one of the things I wanted to really appreciate you, because one of our goals this year for SIHR was to try to get the women's exposure out there and recorded better, right? So talking about not just the women hockey players, whom we also want to explore, but also kind of women in hockey executive positions and their experiences and how that has played out, or how we can improve and get that message out there.
There's a lot more women in hockey executive positions, but they're just not in the media. I did it coming up with my husband and the businesses we've had and working with foundations, the Monumental Sports Foundation, which at the time was the Washington Capitals Foundation, the Anaheim Ducks Foundation and the Wives, and then the Minnesota Wild, and then starting two teams. I have friends in hockey that are on the executive side of running the foundations. Almost every foundation in hockey is run by a woman. Katie Bottinger has come from being an assistant to the GM to operations manager with the Vegas Golden Knights. And in hockey world, everyone in hockey knows her in the NHL. She is considered the rock star. If you need something and your team can't do it, she knows who, how, why, when. She is on top of all travel, and she does all their travel, all their immigration, all that. She's just not in the limelight. She just loves, there's a lot of women doing the nuts and bolts, but not wanting to be front and center.
And with that, I noticed that in one of the radio advertisements here in Hershey, I heard a couple of months ago that it was your husband, Bruce Boudreau, actually doing the plug for the USPHL
Yes.
Cubs. And as I understand it, because this is a family business, there was a conscious decision about that. Would you mind sharing about the splitting up?
No, that's easy. So I am not usually the one doing the interviews. I don't usually get in front of a camera. I like doing the back work. I like getting the work done, making sure it works, seeing it to completion. And when we got the team with what he was doing and what he wanted to do, what we needed most from him was his notoriety, his face. We say he's the face of the team. If I need media, I can put him out there and I'm going to get media. We got our Cubs jersey on the NHL Network because he was working with them, and Jackie Redmond agreed to wear it. It's stuff that I couldn't have did on my own. I might have, it would have been a lot more work. This was a phone call. Getting someone to write an article, Mike Russo, who's with The Athletic, or Tim Leone, who's, reporters. It's with him, it's easy. So to start a business in hockey, he's the face, he's our plug, he is what gets us in the door. It got us in the door to work with Warrior for equipment. If I need something, I can use him and his connections to get there easier than if I was starting on my own, or if anyone was starting on their own without someone as well known as he is. And then he doesn't have to do all the work.
And kind of being the, well, not kind of, being the wife of a head coach, was there also other leadership opportunities for you, or other leadership expectations, especially with either executive or player wives?
Not really. So in the NHL, at least, wives of executives, actually coaches' wives, executives' wives, and players' wives are really kept separate. It's for the best, because coaches' wives, you're going to bitch about your management and your players are going to bitch about everyone, and management tells everyone what to do and then blames them when it doesn't work. But you want to keep it separate because you don't want to always think about what you're saying. So like currently we have a really good group of coaches' wives in Vancouver, and the wives will do things besides working together on charity events. We'll also do biking and hiking and physical activity together and hang out together when they're on road trips, if I'm in Vancouver. And that isn't always the case. But one of them has young kids. The rest of us, most of our kids are older. So it's easier for us to hang out. When you have younger coaches and everyone has young kids and they're not living in the same areas, it becomes very hard to have a good group of wives to hang out with. There for the longest time, I was the youngest coach's wife, and I had the little ones, and their coaches were grown. or their coaches, their kids were grown, their coaches are still growing. So I was the one always going to the 10 p.m. hockey practice or the 7 a.m. hockey practice, and I couldn't do a lot of the things that they did for fun because I had little ones. So now I can hop a plane if I wanted to at this point too. In Minnesota, it would be easier for me to go on a road trip if I wanted to. My son was grown, I could leave everyone in charge and take off and go have a fun trip. I don't do that as much now because I'm going every 2 weeks to Vancouver and coming back for 2 weeks. I am going to Vegas. I have yet to miss a Vegas trip. I will make that exception. But I mean, because if I want to travel, I need to come home.
Mhm.
I mean, I got home last Saturday and I'm leaving Monday. So I have a lot to do when I come. I get it done. I make sure everyone's in order, deal with any issues coming up, and then turn around and go again, and then run it from there. So yeah, so the groups stay separate. You might do one big activity together, so you do know them, you do have like, you're polite and cordial, but you're not friendly and you're not like leading the charge. It's a team thing, which is great because if there's a big event, the teams organized it, which makes everyone come. The coaches' wives, then we all send out texts. We have our own little group text and who's going here, who wants to do this. And those that can. Like we have one that works full time. Like I said, one with 2 young kids in school. So they're the ones in and out, but the rest of us just make it work.
Now, have you experienced, or what is your best challenge or story to overcome, if you will, over managing being co-owners of 2 PHL teams?
The hardest thing is being the boss. I mean, honestly, like talking to your coach because most of your coaches also have other jobs, but you need them. We got to come first for what we're paying you. We are paying you. And I mean, more than high school coaches, I mean, decent money. And they don't like it. They think, well, I work. Yeah, coaching, you work. You don't get paid for everything you do in coaching, no matter what level, what event, what sport. It's your reward is the players. You've got to love it to do it. To do coaching, you have to love it. You don't get paid your worth. And that's the hardest part for me is, and in Coon Rapids, especially because our head coach was also our minority owner. And the one time he's like, well, I don't know if I approve that. And I was like, well, guess what? You don't have to. I hate to say this, but I am your boss and majority owner. You can't outrank me. And he looked at me like, I'm like, yes, let's just get that out there. But we had a great relationship. But it was like at one point, you don't want to say it, but sometimes you have to say, I want to be nice. I want to be friendly. But bottom line is I have the final say. My son's an owner. And sometimes I'm like, right now, I'm not your mom. I am your majority owner. You're an owner, you're a coach, you're my son, but you're not winning this one. And he'll be like, then I usually give him a couple days to cool off before I decide to deal with it again. But that's the hardest part because it's the part of being in front. Like I love being the worker bee. I love getting it all done, organizing, making sure it works. And then sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone and do it. And I don't like it, but I can do it.
Now, on the kind of flip side to that, well, sorry, switching up gears a little bit to your charity work, right? You mentioned working with the Wild Foundation, the Anaheim, all those. And then your son has been diagnosed with Asperger's,
Yes.
and that was well articulated in several articles, especially one by Michael Russo. Has that given you a new appreciation for the autism work and charity that is sponsored by NHL?
It is. First of all, when he was diagnosed with Asperger's, they didn't call it autism. Now everything is under the autism spectrum, and you say you're on the spectrum as to what level. So he's high functioning. It's social that's a little bit harder for him. And I'm very lucky with him because he was the one the doctor's like, we don't have to label him. And he's like, it explains who I am. I don't care. Labels don't bother him. And I'm trying to get it out there, which several people said they might want to use this. Being on the spectrum is like having a speed limit. If you go to a new town and there are no speed limits, you don't know where it's 15, 20, 25, 30. You can get a ticket. You're going to do something wrong. You're going to get in trouble. So on the spectrum, they all have speed limits. It's what they need, whether it's maybe a little bit of quiet time or you to be very black and white. All the label does is give them a speed limit as how to deal with them. It's their normal. And everyone's like, oh, well, you're not normal. Like, no one's normal, because your normal is not my normal, which is not your normal. So you just have to know how to proceed. So putting them on the spectrum is like saying, here's your speed limit. This is what you do. And that's all it is. It's just helping you. It's like going to a different country. You can't do in Japan what you would do here. When you're autistic, you just need someone to talk to you in a different way. Sometimes it's breathing, just very calmly. And people want them to look you in the eye. Well, most people on the spectrum don't, for the simple reason, when they look you in the eye, they see your eyes moving, they see your hair moving. They start seeing things that normal people don't look at. And it distracts them. So when they look like straight down, they're looking at a spot on the floor that's not going to change, so they can pay attention. Once you understand that, you realize, quit telling them to look you in the eye, because right now they're paying complete attention by staring at something that's not moving. So all it is, and I love that they're trying to make it more normal. We have currently 2 interns, one on the spectrum, one with Downs for the Cubs. They're great. Our players are learning how to interact with them on a normal basis, just differently than they would with their friends. And they're just part of the team. They come in, they do their job. And you know what? There are some days that something gets to them and we're like, fine, just go take a minute. Not a big deal. We understand that sometimes they just need to take a minute. And the NHL is doing that. They're doing that in a lot of areas, trying to make autism normal and accepted, and to understand that there's just so much functioning. It's just not what maybe your child did or your child. But when moms talk, no 2 kids are the same either. So there's just a wider range.
That's awesome. And kind of going on to a little bit more lighter topics. So why did you choose to settle back here in Hershey after, the 2.5 years of time here in 2005 to 2007? And why did you also potentially, or why did you decide to start up a USPHL team here?
Okay, so for been with my husband 30 years, and we've always, every city where we want to live. Kind of would have said California because of the weather, but the cost of living was like, yeah, no. And it's too far from our family. So, I mean, but sitting outside at night with no bugs, I had no problem with that. But we kept looking, and the closer we got to wanting to know where we were going to be, we loved the area. We loved that it was central. It's close to his family and my family without being an unexpected pop in close. But it's not like we didn't pick his family, we didn't pick mine. He loves the Hershey Country Club, and we were here for 2.5 years, but we kept our house here and came back summers for 10. And we've always had our country club membership since he was here the first time. He would golf every summer. And so then he wanted to be on the course, which is where we weren't. We were in Harrisburg before. And a house just happened to come up, and they called us and they said, this house is gonna go on the market. Do you want it? There's 1 of 8. They were all original. They're just starting to turn over. The people that sold ours were 88. So he said, yeah, so we bought it sight unseen because you guys shut down in the pandemic. They couldn't even get a realtor in there. And at 88, she was not real good at FaceTiming to show me the house. We had a few issues with that, but we knew what they looked. My husband had known. I had actually never been in one, but he had been in one of the neighbors. And so we bought it sight unseen and said, this is going to be it. We both had friends here. So that was fine. I've started over, so that would have been fine too. It was important for me to be somewhere where he had friends outside of hockey, because most of the places we've been, all of his friends were with the team. So here he still had friends that had nothing to do with hockey, which made it easier. As far as starting a team, there were a couple reasons. One, there's no junior here in Hershey, and all the kids would go to Philly, to New Jersey, to New York to get to that level, and which is really silly when they have everything else here. The other reason was I didn't want to move here without my child, and got to give him a job. He was in hockey. He was working for our other team. So to convince him to leave Minnesota and come here, we decided we'd take a team, knowing that he'll be quite capable of taking it over in the future. And he did not want to live with mom and dad. So luckily he also never spends any money. So he bought his own place here about 4 months after I got him here. He will help at the house if I need him, but yeah, we function much better with him and his messy stuff at his own apartment. Mom's a little OCD in some areas, that's cleaning. But yeah, so it kind of works. We're still working on like sometimes he'll call me and say, I need you to be my mom, because he needs to vent. So being on the spectrum, I don't want him to internalize it. So I'm the person he calls. and I'll just listen. And sometimes I have to just shut off those emotions because he's actually complaining about me, but as a boss, and I get it. So, but it does work, and he's learning all the other things to do. He's learning to deal with players more. He's becoming more aware of his strengths. So if he ever becomes a head coach, he knows his assistant coaches will have to have the skills he lacks. And that's the big thing, once again, about being on the spectrum, is knowing where to fill in. Like if you're going to work in an office, you need someone that complements you, because you can do so much, but there are certain things that, and they're very self-aware. They know what they can't do. You do not go to my son for sympathy. Yeah, no. If you want someone to agree with you and make you feel better, no, that's not the person you will go to. But if you want someone to be flat out honest with you about what you need and what you're doing and how you're doing, he is it. And it's the same thing every time. You're not gonna sway him. It's black and white. So we got him here and my husband here, and then my husband left, but so yeah, but it's gonna be a central place. And if all the other kids that are in hockey in our family, if they ever need to come and work or help, they can. And it's good for the community too.
Now, as I understand it, across both Canada and the United States, you have about 5 schools, right?
Yes. So we started with one, which my husband started before me, actually, for a few years before I knew him. And it was in St. Catharines, and they did, at the time, there was just a 2-pad, and did 1 week. And then when we started, it was 2, then we went to 3. Then we realized, okay, we don't have an entire 5 weeks to spend running, but they opened up a 4-pad. So we put all the kids into 1 week. When we were running it, it was 4 to 5 rinks, 9 hours a day. We'd do junior kids at night. We'd see about, in that week, 400 to 420 kids. We did lunches, buses. We had 75 employees. When was it? 2014, we turned it over to the boys. So we're still there to help. We support. They do the majority. And then they all started branching out. So they all wanted their own. So Brady has one in Minnesota. Ben, who is coaching in Fort Wayne, has one in Fort Wayne, which he does in conjunction with the team. He has one in Coburg, where his wife is close to from, and does one in the Belleville area. And then Andy, who lives in Banff and Canmore, works with the local teams there. And his aren't big schools. He does little camps here and there. So he does Christmas and Thanksgiving, and he'll do 3-day camps as well as full-time off-ice training. And he also works with the skating skills for the local teams. So they're all in hockey. All the boys are now. And so then all the boys try and team up. One will always go help out another one if they can't all be there. So Ben and Andy all take turns coming to Minnesota. Brady, because he's the youngest and doesn't have kids, it's easier. Usually he hits all of them for the boys. And then we all meet up in August every year and do the hockey school. And we all take turns. And I'm at the stage where I'm very lucky, because most of my day is saying hi to parents and spoiling the grandkids and then turning them back over to their parents when I get them all the sugar in the world and had no rules for the day. At the same time, the parents that we had are bringing their kids back. The kids that came are bringing their kids back. And so they still like seeing Bruce and I. Bruce still goes on the ice at least once with them, but he's there every day talking to them. And they're improving on what we did, but it's still the same program. And that's the biggest thing parents say is, we wanted our kids to experience what we did, and their kids are. And then we see relationships like kids from the US that would come up. They're still doing that trip every year to see their friends. We have this one family, and every other Christmas they split time. The whole family goes to Canada. The next year, the whole family goes to, I think, Virginia now. And it's just lifetime friends. And you see it on Facebook, how they're still connected and reaching out. And it's what you see as they grow, and the kids and how they come back, and you've made a difference or you did something, and they look back on that time in their life as something special.
Now, you brought up the fact that one of the compliments you get is that from the parents, they say that their kids experience the same things. So as I understand, the USPHL Cubs play actually in our old barn of Hershey, and kind of carrying that same idea. Do you see that kind of?
I see parents come in to watch our games, and they love the nostalgia. They love that In the day of everything digital, we have paper tickets. We still take cash. We still use that stairwell. If you've ever tried to carry a hockey up and down that stairwell. Whew. And the parents do, they appreciate it. They see what's great about Hershey Park Arena is they still have the Wilt Chamberlain picture and the chairs from the original, not the original chairs, but some of them. And they can go through and see something new every time. And the parents that come in and are like, we played in this building, or we watched the Bears in this building. And it's something special. I mean, and there are some complaints, like a lot of fog in September. Or the other night when it was really humid out and they had already turned the heat on and we're in there sweating. But you can't beat the history and the feeling and knowing how many people before you have stepped there and you're continuing that tradition.
With kind of wrapping up my kind of portion of it, I have two more questions. So one of those is, what is your favorite Hershey memory? And as I understand it, you also come from a line of bakers, and that you have hopefully an awesome baking story to tell us, or some baking memory that you like to share.
I have several. My favorite Hershey memory. So I have two. One is not hockey related, and one is. So the one that's not is we had just moved into our house in Harrisburg. We were just here, and all the other homes were under construction. Well, you know how you guys get rain here a lot. I still have this picture on my desk. My son comes in and him and his friends have been sliding in the mud. And I mean, they are head to toe mud, like, and my friend looked at me, she was like, I'm like, just strip right here outside, you're all boys, hosed them down. But we all have that same picture of them just being kids out in, and I'm not kidding when I say head to toe, there was not a spot on them that was not. They were sliding through it. Hockey is right after they won. They were in Milwaukee. They had gotten my son on the bench for when they won. And they take this picture in the locker room, and Louis Robitaille did it, and I can't, you look at my, like, how old was he? That was 06. So he would have been 8-year-old child, my husband, and on the board behind him, the chalkboard, it says, F yeah. Okay, and you know, back then there wasn't a lot of digital redoing on these photos. So I'm like, you guys, really? Like, this is right above my 8-year-old's head. But so that was funny. And then flying home, and they had no food but lots of alcohol, and the flight attendants gave Louis Robitaille the microphone. That was a long flight home. So that was the fun part. As far as baking, I do love baking. I've taught baking. I've had my own catering business for baking and chocolate. I was the chocolate lady. Those big chocolate fountains, I've did them everywhere. I can make handmade chocolates long before we came to Hershey. Trying to think of my favorite baking story. Oh, well, it was with the Bears. They were doing a fundraiser. The wives wanted to, and they're trying to find something to sell. And I agreed to make 500 teddy bear chocolate lollipops. The wives said they'd help me. They were not any help. Between them not knowing how to temper or work with molds, or them testing the product, in the end, I got them all done and I just let them wrap. And then we sold them at the games, and it was a lot of fun. And like, they were really cute with little bow ties and something real basic. I mean, I did everything from croissants and teaching to bread, but I did a lot of, in Anaheim, I did 500 chocolate covered strawberries for charity events. And sometimes it's just fun to do little things. My son every year gets peanut butter fudge, which technically he doesn't like it, but I make it in the shape of pumpkins. And I used to do it when he was little, and they'd pick it, and he gets it once a year. I only make it once a year. And if I don't make 2 batches, he will not share with his girlfriend. He gets a whole batch. He literally takes the whole batch. So I always have to make more than one if anyone else wants some. So those are the things that I started when he was 2, and I still do his peanut butter pumpkins once every year. I make peanut butter fudge a lot more, but he actually won't eat it unless they're in the shape of pumpkins.
So I would like to kind of, I know I'm a little retracting myself here a little bit, but before I turn it over to Zoom and the audience questions, I would like to get your opinion or your thoughts on whether or not the NHL, AHL need to do more outreach for women in executive roles or those sorts of positions.
I think there going to always be more outreach. I think sometimes if you try to, you want the best candidate, So we need to have programs where the women can learn and get involved. Because if you say, I'm only gonna get a woman, you may miss out on the best candidate. I'm not big on saying, I have to have a woman for this position. You need the best person, but you need to have programs to train women. And I know Pittsburgh started one, and they've started an executive training program, and it is for, I believe, minorities, women, or people on the spectrum. And they'll take one a year, put them through an executive training program. We need more of that. You don't want to just say, I'm gonna hire this person. You really do need the best person. But if you see someone that has the potential, get them in there, train them. There is so much more to hockey than just that one thing. During the pandemic, I think the best thing I heard about in the NHL was Buffalo did not lay anyone off. But what they did was they started Sabres University. So every 6 weeks, if you were in accounting, you would go to some other field. They all cross-trained, which also meant that if someone was out, there was someone trained to do it. And if a job opened up, you knew if you wanted that job or not. It kept them all employed full-time, but it opened up a lot more jobs to them, opportunities. Being in hockey, a lot of it is being in the right place at the right time or starting low. A lot of the women I know started out as interns, whether it was in the executive to the executive assistant to the GM in Anaheim, started out on the fan patrol. She was those people that went out and got you cheering as a part-time college. And then she got into full-time, and then she got into the foundation, and then she slowly worked her way up, learning every part about it. Now is her executive role. Yes, she's an assistant to the GM, but she's also learned from every other aspect. And so when he asks a question, she has all this knowledge, and he can listen to her and understand what she's saying, and she's been there. So we need more training things. And I do think it's a unique sport that you really do need to understand all of it. Just to be a GM is okay. If you've never been in it, it's hard, but if you've been in every other role and you know what they do and what it's about, and it's like being a coach. Yeah, you could just play the best players, but you also got to look at, my best player may not be my most high paid player right now, but I don't want to waste 15 million of my budget. Or I know they're looking to trade this guy. If I don't play him, they can't trade him. I can't get better. My boss isn't happy. There's so much more that goes into it than just coaching or just getting the right players. It's about making it all work. So we really need to find more, I think, training programs or internships where there's GM internships or apprenticeships. I think apprenticeships in sports would be huge, learning every aspect. When you buy a McDonald's, and I have friends that own several, you have to learn every job. You're not allowed to own one until you've worked in every position, from cleanup to manager to making the burgers to weighing the burgers. And they have their own schools so that when they have someone that owns one, they know they're capable of running it. Male, female, it doesn't matter. They all go through the same program.
Awesome. Well, and thank you for that. So with that being said, I'll open it up to either Zoom or Bill. Did you?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
You probably answered already. What advice do you give to a young man or woman wanting to be in the sports administration industry?
Get in on the ground floor. Like, take anything that's open. Hockey is great. It's like one of those businesses that once you're in, usually they open up any other job to you, but you also have to be willing to jump in and, okay, my job's here, and well, they're short at game day, but I was just gonna go watch. You have to be willing to say, hey, let me help. I'm here anyway. Let me do it. You're gonna learn some new skills. Someone else is gonna see your name. Oh wait, they helped out last time. I can use them here. Or we're opening up this job. You did such a good job. A lot of people, and I've seen it with my relatives, that they graduate and they want this perfect little job. You know, they want to work 40 hours, have the company car, something we all worked 30 years to get, and they want it right now. You got to be willing to do the dirty work. You got to be willing to learn. The most invaluable person is the person who can do every job, who is willing to help out, who doesn't always want the limelight. Like, being in the limelight also means you're the first one gone. Guess what? They see you, look at coaches, not always their fault, but you can't get rid of 25 players. You can get rid of one coach. And so that's really hard. But if you want to get into sports, you have to, and I've told my interns this, volunteer, take any open part-time position and then just follow them in what they do. And now they've started with hockey boards. So you can go and see any hockey job out there. It's like in sales, you're gonna have to apply for 100 and you may get one. But you can also make yourself stand out if you've had any experience. Apply online, send a handwritten letter. Because guess what, online, I sometimes misplace or think I've responded and it's sitting in my outbox. Paper they have to touch. Even if it's throw it away, they're gonna see it and it's gonna stand out. It's something we used to all do, but now it'll be different. So you just have to get in. You're not gonna just get a GM job. You're not gonna just get a coaching job. You know, our son that's in the ECHL is a head coach and they're not having a great start. So hockey's not fun right now for people. But he started out as an assistant at even a lower level. He started out coaching in Banff or Kelowna, in Western Canada, for a high school team, then a private team, and then got an assistant coach in, I think it was the ECHL, and worked his way up. It was a long process. I mean, he's already coached 8 years at 30, how old is he? 38. No, he's actually coached, I think 9 or 10 years now. And it's not been an easy road, and it isn't, but he started where he wanted. This is what he wanted. He's going to start at any level and get there. So just get in and work hard. But if you're in sports, be ready to move, because a job may come open, but not in your town.
Yeah.
And they will help you. I have a friend and a job came open somewhere else and they knew she wanted it, like in her. So they said, if you want it, we can get it for you, but you're going to have to move. Sports is not the thing that you're going to usually stay with the same team forever.
Great. Any other questions from, yeah, James?
Oh, no, go ahead. First of all, as a grandparent of a grandchild on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comments today. You know,
You're welcome.
it's they're not some weirdos out there in outer space.
No.
These kids. And I suppose one of the neat things I get, sometimes he crosses the line. He looks at me and says, "Oh, Papa's in the red zone." And he knows that he's gone too far. Interesting stuff about his growth my daughter has 3 children. And this is a special one for her because it takes extra care.
Yeah.
And it's just, the other thing I mentioned about hockey in autism, one of the great heroes to all hockey players, or should be a hero, is a guy named Ted Lindsay. And Ted Lindsay was a great supporter of work with people in the on the spectrum.
Yeah.
He was a great supporter of them. It sounds like Ted Lindsay, but doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all.
Yeah, my son Ted Lindsay is one of his favorite people.
He is my favorite, always has been.
And because it would be interesting, you go to these places with hockey cards and they'd be like, "Oh, which card do you want?" And they're like, "Oh, it'll be this." And my son's like, they're like, "Who's your favorite goalie?" He's like, "Old time, current, or new." And then they're like, "What?" And he's got them all divided into categories and he knows why. And he got a chance to meet Red Kelly, and Red's like, "Why do you want me?" And he went over all of his, like, "You got 5 years as a vent and a forward." And he's like looking at him going, "What?" So yeah, and Ted Lindsay did, and they are, but like you said, red zone. When they can start learning it, then it helps them also dial it back and realize, okay, because they're hard to correct because everything's personal and it's 100%. So you gotta like ride that line, but it's just your parenting style changes just like it would with no 2 kids are alike. And you just learn to kid gloves sometimes.
James?
First of all, thanks for taking time out of your weekend to speak to us. Second, if things don't work out in Vancouver, Ottawa would love to have me.
Our daughter would love that too.
I don't speak to the team, but yeah. To my question, as a woman involved in and around hockey for so many years,
Yeah.
so many men involved in hockey in your life, as you probably are aware, there's been a lot of scrutiny on hockey culture, off-ice behavior in Canada, Hockey Canada, voting, all of that stuff. Do you feel that the leagues and teams are doing enough now? I was curious about the halo on the logo, and of course went to read
Yes.
how that came to be and how you try to work with your young men to be the best community members and on and off the ice and so on. So do you feel that there is a fundamental shift happening and that young men are more I hate to use the term woke, but more aware of their responsibilities and the way they should be behaving, despite the undue attention that being semi-famous from hockey brings them.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna answer that in a different way, because I say yes and no. Hockey Canada specifically is starting to get it. I think it's not just about making them woke, it's about discipline. And you will see the kids that are disciplined are better behaved. But when they get to that age, no one wants to discipline them. And the easiest thing is to cut them loose when they make a mistake. We had some kids on our team and stupid stuff they did. And did we cut them loose? No, they all took turns missing a game, but better yet was they got to clean that rink. The rink got 20 unpaid workers to clean the steps, to clean all the goo they couldn't get out every Monday for 4 hours for the whole season. And then they were like, oh, we got a game today. I go, yeah, so you're gonna do it tomorrow. You have one, think about what you did and why you're doing this. I think we have to get out of, we need to teach them, but then there's gotta be consequences, and sometimes public consequences so people understand they are being disciplined. And then I have also this term of fair versus equal. I do it with our players a lot. A fair punishment is not always an equal punishment, because your captain who's 4 years in has a different expectation than your rookie who's just learning. If they do the exact same thing wrong, fair is not giving them the same punishment, because this one has higher expectations. He's supposed to be your leader. He's 4 years into this career and knows better. And my biggest thing is kids will be kids. They will make mistakes, but let's correct them. And it's actually not a punishment. It's a consequence of what you do to teach them as an adult. You will have consequences. So we need to make them aware that right is right, wrong is wrong. And no matter who you are, you will have a consequence. So I think we're headed there, and they are trying to get everyone aware of what's right and what's wrong. I still haven't seen consequences of those actions yet. So they're all like, well, we gotta hold them accountable, but they say it, but there's been no putting their name out in public. You know, these are the guys that did it. That's gonna be a deterrent. And you can see it in the criminal justice system. In Texas, they're big. There's this one judge that's big on, guess what? You're gonna go spend 4 hours driving to mug stalls at the police station and then drive home smelling like that to think about what you did, or standing on a corner with a sign saying, I got a hooker, like I got caught, you know. That's a deterrent for someone in the business world, is the consequences of, and they're not punishment, they're consequences for what you did. So they want them to be woke, but I'm still waiting for them to have consequences, have a published set of consequences or something so that they know what it is. It's gonna be slow going, but it's also slow going because the world's changing as we speak. And what's okay today is not okay tomorrow, wasn't okay a year ago. So it's hard to keep up, but being driven citizens, doing the right thing is not always the easy thing. And being polite and nice to everyone you meet, those are standards that should never, no matter what generation you are, have gone away. And we let special hockey players or special people in any sport get away with certain things because they were good. And if you punish them, your team's being punished. Well, we were at nationals and we benched our top player for doing something stupid. Guess what? That was the rule. He broke it. He knew he broke it. And we self-reported. The league didn't know, and we did it. So yeah, so I think we're coming, but there's a ways to go.
Frank, sorry. And then after Frank, it'll be the Zoom and then you, okay?
It's interesting you brought up Ted Lindsay.
Yeah.
I was his paper boy.
Wow.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I used to make a set of paper and walk a long way. He made sure I got it right. I was Ted
Nice.
Lindsay and Kirk Lake.
He wasn't born in Kirkland Lake, though, we know that. No.
Well, he was born somewhere.
Born in-
All
He
right.
lived his whole life in Kirk Lake, so yeah.
Yeah, the Zoom call, please.
Yes, yeah, so this is from Aubrey, and he was referring to Bruce's Hockey Network and how it helps to get things done. Is there anyone from his Leaf days that Bruce stays in touch with or can help with that network side of things?
Well, we were in touch with a lot of the Leafs, like he's still a member of the Leafs alumni and still reaches out. He's in touch a lot with Mark Curtin, who has ALS. And so we actually work with him on, he's did PSAs, and we had Mark out to Vancouver to raise awareness. They were really good friends with golf every summer. And even in the beginning, he could still beat my husband at golf. So even when he couldn't use his one arm, as he said. And then we were really good friends with their equipment manager for 25 years, Brian Papineau. And he's taken a step back because he's getting ready to retire. And but there's people in the alumni organization more than Toronto, because the staff and the management there has changed so much, and it's so big. There's so many of them. But yeah, they always reach out when we're there. And if this will be the first year I haven't taken my mother-in-law to a game. She said they're just too stressful for her now, almost turning 90. But even last year we went, and they make sure, even during the pandemic, they broke the rules. They got her down to see him after the game, and they make sure she's on TV, which her friends all tell her, which means I'm sitting next to her. So I'm thinking the whole time going, don't do anything stupid, don't do anything stupid. But so yeah, but Toronto holds a special place in his heart. He was born and raised there, drafted by them, played for the Marlies. His mom still lives there, cheers for them unless he's playing them, and isn't probably really upset if he loses, but she is, but isn't, because they're her team. So, but yeah, Mark Curtin is one of the best, and there's a couple other players he knew growing up and played with, and they're still in touch, but Mark's the one I'm most aware of.
Cool.
Two things.
Yes.
Thank you for coming and also talking about on the spectrum.
Yeah.
My current job, I work with 75 clients who are on the spectrum, one shape or form. And one of the things I'm doing recently is getting them involved with different sports, going to a pro game and seeing it happen in front and see their reactions. Getting good, I got great reactions for soccer. Next on is hockey. So the second thing is, your husband's looking for a golf coach. My son is a pro golfer. He would do on the teach.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Biggest problem my husband has with golf is once he gets to putting, he gets in a hurry.
Yeah.
He wants to go as fast as he can.
The type of clients that I'm working, as I said, are all
Yep,
over the
yep.
spectrum. Other programs send their kids to me also to work with them, teaching them how to be independent.
Yeah.
Out there and really changing how they've been doing things from previous. Before that, I used to work with gang intervention program,
Oh, wow.
which I dealt with the bad boys of Worcester. I live in Central Mass, so they were a lot of fun.
Oh, I've been to Worcester
I
many
did get
times.
some gray hair, but more of the beard because of that. But we made great progress in Worcester at the time I was there. We were saving 5 out of every 6 kids.
And you know what? You were probably doing a lot of the same things you do with the kids on the spectrum. They were raised a different way. They were in a different, you had to get to them. You had to find something that got to them, and each one would be different, whatever
Was their
their.
mother. If we would say your mother's gonna lose her house
Yeah.
and where she is, they straighten right out real quick.
You know, it's finding, and I do think hockey will be good with people on the spectrum because it's fast paced and something always going,
Yes and no.
unless they have an issue with big groups of people.
I think the big groups of people, but we were at a 20,000, not 20, it was 10,000 for MLS soccer,
Okay,
which I thought he held up pretty good. Not great. We had to leave with about 20 minutes left in the game. He had,
yeah, enough, yeah.
and I said, oh, okay, well, we went longer than I thought we would. I was kind of hoping maybe half the game. You'd see the headlights and be out of there, but now it's really great to hear somebody come in and talk about the program, the type of issues that you saw on the spectrum, because it isn't talked about a lot.
No, it doesn't. And that's just it. We got to make it more normal because they are normal. I mean, everyone is, I do believe, I was told I wasn't normal my whole life. And I finally said, well, if I'm not normal, I don't want to be. I like who I am.
If it wasn't for the fact that I was making strides in the program, I would have retired this year, but I'm gonna stretch it out for a couple more years and then.
And that's what we need. It's people who are making the strides, and it just needs more attention. More people to understand that they are normal. Maybe they're not, you are normal, but go somewhere else and they're not the same people you are.
I got a high school kid to practice football and eventually he was able to, and he was awesome as far as a player. And he was he was a great linebacker on football. He just loved to hit people. And he found the sport where he could get away
Yeah.
with it. Fun. So,
But yeah, no, and I do hope we keep making it more in the public eye and putting these people front and center. I mean, for the ones that can, I mean, and they'll get there. It'll make everyone better because they have so much to offer. And some of their knowledge is stuff that I would never get. And once you work with them, it teaches you to explain things differently. It's like a great teacher. A great teacher will say it, do it, show it 2 or 3 different ways to get to every student in the class. And that's all they need is the chance to show what they have.
I tried money planning with one, this is the last thing I'll say. We tried money planning. And then he said, what do you mean? You gotta save some of your paycheck that you have each week, right? He comes in proud as it could be. Know what was left in the savings after the week? 1 cent.
Hey, well, he saved.
He was happy.
Yeah, he was happy. It wasn't 0.
It wasn't zero, it was 1 cent.
Well, was there,
No, I'm okay.
okay, yeah, Bill.
How do you handle with your husband, you know, the rumors of him being fired or fired, and the whole press coverage of your husband?
It's easier now that our son is grown. In the beginning, when our son's in school and he gets it from other kids, it was
Yes.
hard. You want to protect him. And that's hard. It's just part of what it is. I don't read, if I read an article, I never read comments, good, bad, and different, because it sends you down a rabbit hole. I leave that to my friends and they respond and do whatever and only tell me the good ones. It is what it is. And like I said, they'll say, oh, this is it. And you'll know there's reasons things happen and you can't make them public. Why is this guy not playing? Or why is that guy? You may have been told by your boss to play him. A guy may be injured that they don't want the injury out there. There are so many things that go into it. We don't go out a lot when it's not good. We stay in. Good thing I love to cook because, and we're best friends. So we do a lot of just staying together. You get this hard shell and you just kind of become tunnel vision about what you want to see and what you don't. This time of year is great for me because if it's not going well, there's the Hallmark Channel. Happiness every day. I also watch hockey games on mute.
Okay,
I don't need to hear the commentary.
yes.
I don't need it getting in my head. Plus, if it's on mute, I actually have to pay attention because I can't just do something else and listen for the sounds. So, and I do get quizzed after games. He'll say, what, that, this, and I'll be like, we don't always have the same opinion. We don't always like the same players. But you just learn to adjust, but you have to get that shell where, because you can't defend it all the time. You can't talk back. You're not going to win it. You just, and like they asked my husband the other day and he's like, look, I'm coaching. If they want to fire me, they'll fire me. I can't do anything about it. And I can't think about it every minute of the day. But now that our son is grown, we don't have a son that's going to have to move schools, rip him out from friends, hear about it in school before it happens. The one fun part wasn't fun. When Bruce got fired in Washington and Brady was at a private school, I let the school know because it happened like right as I dropped him off. They shut the internet down so that Brady could get through the day. And then the next day they called me to say Brady was being really quiet. They thought it was affecting him. And I couldn't say anything till the next day, but Brady was really quiet because Bruce had already got the job in Anaheim, but it wasn't public knowledge. So Brady was afraid if he said anything, and he was very conscious about that because the coach in Anaheim had not been fired yet.
Okay.
So we were all so when I let the principal know, but they were great about giving him the day because it happened after he got there. And they were very good about watching out for him. And that was the best experience in a bad situation is they were putting the kid first. And they did the same thing with kids. They had some kids there from the G20. So when there was a big mess, they shut the internet down so that kids weren't getting information at school that someone could say something. They just wanted them to have school.
Yeah.
So it's not easy, but you sign up for it. You get a hard shell. You have your moments, you take a moment, you give yourself 5 minutes and then you're like, okay, put on that brave face. I'm there to support him. So luckily I have friends that I can call that will listen to me complain. And then I'm there for him. And you just got to learn to enjoy the good stuff too. So when it's good, you want to enjoy it. And in the beginning of coaching, we didn't because we always wanted more. And now I'm like, no, we're gonna enjoy every good day, because there's a lot of bad days and a lot of down and and there is a lot of media. In the NHL, they scrutinize everything. You win one, you're good, you lose one, you're horrible. So you just gotta go with it and yeah, keep your
Well,
mind occupied.
Well, with that, thank you for your
You're
time.
welcome.
And do you have, if you want to say any parting thoughts, otherwise I would like to have invite Ed Norris, our vice president, to present you with a thank you
Oh,
gift for coming out here.
All I'd like to say is I think this is great, getting women to talk and finding ways to get out there. Because like I said, there are so many women executives that no one knows about, because they just do the behind the scenes, and they are executives and they do a lot. They are relied on for travel, immigration, actually making sure players get here and get moved. But you only hear about the guys in the limelight. So getting people to talk and see what they do and see there's a lot more opportunities. There might only be 2 or 3 in front of the camera, but there's a lot of chances to get into hockey and do something good. So thank you for having me. You know, I do want to lose tomorrow. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, let's meet your face. Just one more. Don't look at the train. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
I love this. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's great that I came out here.
No, it's nice. Like I said, I'm usually behind the scenes, but now we're starting to do a little bit more out there, and it is important to get it out there and say and do it. And I can't tell everyone else to do it if I'm not willing.
Great.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy.
I will.